Ladies and gentlemen, the highest title that you can achieve in the world of chess is most subscribed chess YouTuber. The second highest title that you can achieve in the world of chess is Grandmaster. Everybody tries to become a Grandmaster when they start out on their chess journey, but very few are able to truly accomplish it. Now, there is some debate. Should there be an even higher title? Of course, you can argue that becoming the world champion of chess is a title on its own. But should there be a title separating Grandmasters from Super Grandmasters? To become a Grandmaster, you have to fulfill a couple of norms, 3 to be exact, and then you need to get a rating of 2,500. But that means that a 2,500 rated player and Magnus Carlsen, who is up here, have the same exact title. And that's the purpose of today's video. Yesterday, Magnus, on October the 2nd, 2023, began a tournament called the European Club Cup. It's basically a glorified fraternity hangout where a bunch of dudes who are represented by some sort of team sponsor play chess against each other and drink alcohol. And Magnus was playing in the first round against another team, and he was playing a normal person. He was playing Grandmaster Ravi Haria, who is 24 years of age, from England, and a 25-22 rated player. And these types of matchups are always fascinating to me because you get to see a level difference. You get to see Magnus play certain openings that he has never played before, which he did. You get to learn a few things, and you get to enjoy this along with me. These two players both have the Grandmaster title. But it ain't close, and I'm not trying to demean Ravi Haria. He's an incredible player. I could only dream to be rated 25-22 on chess.com, any day. But over the board chess, 90-minute chess, no chance. So I'd like to show you this game, and I'd like to show you the level difference between a Grandmaster and the world champion, or former world champion, but best player in the world. Magnus plays e4. And something very interesting happens on move 1, which perhaps could surprise you. Ravi Haria plays e6. He goes for the French defense, okay, to try to play d5. Now, Magnus Carlsen does not face the French defense very often because chess tournaments generally don't pair people this far apart. Chess is like a bubble. Most top-level chess is invitational, and it always has been. So Magnus plays Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Wesley So, Anish Giri, Levon Aronian, and the same top 10 or 20 players all the time. But his opponent now plays the French against him. Normally, his opponents play the Sicilian, and they play e5. That is what Magnus has to play. Look at any of Magnus's world championships where he plays e4. His opponents probably play e5 or c5. So d4, d5, and now already something interesting on the third move. In this position, Magnus has played knight c3 and knight d2, which are two of the most popular moves. The last time that Magnus Carlsen played e5, the advanced French, in a classical game, in a 90-minute or longer type of game, was in 2004 against Simon Agdestein, who is a Norwegian Grandmaster, and he lost that game. That was 19 years ago. I wasn't even born then. No, I was. But how many of you were not born then? I mean, seriously, I think the average age on this channel is like late teenage years, like 16, 17. Some of you watching this are like 7 years old. Some of you watching this are 97 years old. That's not where it stops, by the way. Like, if you're watching this at 102, God bless. Keep it going. Magnus has not played this in a long game in over nearly 20 years. That's what I love about watching him play these, because he just doesn't have a chance. He doesn't have a chance. Now, his opponent plays c5. That's the most principled response against the advanced French. The advanced French takes space away from the natural development of black. You try to anchor this pawn with moves like f4 or knight f3, and then all of your pieces find some sort of home around the structure. Black likes to expand on the queen side where they have more space. White plays c3, and now a big decision, okay? Now, black has to decide which approach he's going to take. There are the offbeat approaches, like pawn to f6, immediately striking at the center. there is queen b6, which is a very, very direct approach. I used to play this myself with black. You try to take, and then sometimes you put pressure on this pawn. Well, you're putting pressure on it, but sometimes you take that pawn. Ravi plays bishop d7, which is the third approach, to just develop and maybe put a rook on c8. So bishop d7 is just a very flexible move, and then you can sort of decide what you want to do next. White has kind of two approaches here. White can play in this style of a3 and try to take some space like this to try to play a very quick b4. Or White can just ignore the queen side and play bishop to e2, and that's exactly what Magnus does. As you can see from the time usage, nobody is thinking yet. Now an interesting decision. According to the database, I sound like Dorothy Ann from, what was that? Magic School Bus? According to my research, the move in this position for black is not the move that black plays in the game, which he plays rather quickly. Here, black will generally play knight e7 to play knight f5 and pressure the pawn. Black can also play a6, and then black can also kind of take the file. Ravi Haria takes on d4 right away, so he completely removes any flexibility from the position, and now he plays knight e7. So his idea is to play knight f5 and put pressure on this pawn. Magnus immediately takes advantage of that square by developing his knight, but first he castles. Knight f5, and now knight c3. You will notice neither side has spent much time. Both guys clearly familiar with the opening. The position is level, because that's the way chess goes. Okay? Black will have sustained pressure on this pawn with moves like queen b6, or in the future getting the queen out there. If you trade the knight, the bishop will come out. And black will rely on this pawn break f6. It's very important to understand where your pawn breaks are in the position. And here Ravi Haria plays a6. Now, that move he spent a little bit of time. I would say 2 minutes. I mean, if you memorize something and you spend 2 minutes on it, it's probably still okay. You control b5. And now the next order of business is how does white develop? So now what? Magnus thinks for nearly 15 minutes. Clearly, this position has been reached before. It's a very popular tabia. White can play various things like g4, trying to create some sort of attack. That's one of the ideas. White can always play a3. It's always a useful move. This bishop would like to develop. The rook would like to come to c1. Maybe a3, b4 repels the queenside forces. But Magnus decides to play bishop g5 straight away. This move has been played. And the idea is quite simple. If black blocks to try to speed up his development, he's actually getting rid of his better bishop. His better bishop right now is that bishop. Why? Because 6 of his 7 pawns are on light squares, which means this bishop is bad. So the move bishop g5 looks like black wants to lazily play bishop e7 and then do this, and castle. But suddenly the eval bar is off of 0, which is very interesting. You would prefer to keep the tension, maybe, with something like queen to b6 or queen to a5, and use this bishop as a target. That's the interesting thing. Like, let's say queen a5, a3, black can play h6, and then black can even play g5, like in the future. Black really doesn't mind. But Magnus already poses a very interesting question to his opponent. And the move f6 here is just no good. It's not like it's losing, but there are various tricks here, like knight to h4. And after pawn takes g5, white can play, for example, bishop h5 check, knight f5, knight takes d5, hunt the king out into the center of the board, and it's a very, very messy position. Very messy. Black might get checkmated at any moment. So bishop e7, right? The utmost of strategic mistakes. Trading off a very natural move, getting ready to castle, and doing exactly that. Magnus plays queen d2 now. He spends another 14 minutes on this move. Clearly, Magnus was a little bit disturbed about what could happen if the queen comes to b4, so he was probably calculating a3, which is, again, a very natural move. But then, you know, black would castle. Black is still going to rely on f6. And he plays queen d2. And now Magnus plays, in this position, I would say Magnus plays, something is in my eye. That's not what he played. Oh my goodness. Oh, I got it out. I got it out. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a big win for me. You guys ever get an eyelash stuck in your eye? That's not what's happening to me right now, but it was something. And I was trying to just power through this video with it in my eye, but you know what? I got to break the fourth wall. Although technically a YouTube video, somebody said this in a comment once, technically a whole YouTube video is breaking the fourth wall because I'm talking directly to you. Pay attention. You're going to want to figure out this move. So this position has been reached. In classical chess, I looked at the database. It's been reached a couple of times on ChessBase. I looked at chess.com, Lee Chess. This position has been reached like 30, 40 times online. The following move that Magnus Carlsen plays in this position has never been played in the hundreds of millions of chess games that have ever taken place in history. At least not recorded ones. Magnus plays Rook AE1. Now, at first glance, you might not quite understand why that move has never been played. I mean, it's just a rook move, right? And your last move was connecting the rooks. This move is fascinating because it looks stupid. Just looks like a stupid move. Why does it look like a stupid move? You want to activate both of your rooks. So naturally, this rook would likely go here to either support the center or defend that pawn, and this rook would go to c1. Why would it go to c1? Because knight a4, knight c5. Duh. So knight a4, something like a3, h6, and then knight a4. Now, unfortunately, there is a tactic there with that bishop. But normally the queen is on d1, and it escorts the knight to the c5 square. But why would he go here? What about this rook? This doesn't make any sense. Because if the argument is, well, I'm going to move that pawn, when? You can't even move the knight. If you move the knight, you lose this. You can't go backwards, right? So what did Magnus think about when he played this move? I think I figured it out. Now, I doubt Magnus is going to watch this video. If he does, then hi. But I think I figured it out. In this position, if you asked White, what's your worst piece? It's probably this bishop. White would love the bishop on that diagonal to potentially start an attack. You cannot play bishop d3 because you probably just lose this pawn. Now, bishop d1 is the idea. However, if you play this now, black can play queen b4. Then if you play a3, forcing the queen back, bishop a4, for example, pinning the knight to the bishop, black can actually potentially still take. Because at the end of it, there is a fork. For example, take, bishop d7, knight b3, let's say queen c2, knight a1, rook d8, and something like the bishop coming out, now d4, d3. And the position's very unclear. It's actually quite complicated. So before you play bishop d1, you play here. So that now your idea is bishop d1, queen b4, a3, queen b6, bishop a4, and that doesn't work because there's no fork anymore. And the other idea is that you take, and start an attack. g4. And this rook that you transferred here suddenly participates in the attack. White can play h4 in the future. White can play rook e3 and rook g3. And while the computer for now is saying the position is balanced, on a high depth, it actually really respects White's position. So Magnus comes up with this alien-like rook move, which in all recorded games of human history has never happened. Okay, I'm listening. I'm paying attention. Fascinating stuff here. What else? If black tries to liquidate the knight, like this, my rooks are now here, and now I am in prime position to use my rooks together. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Because, again, to the untrained eye, it just looks like rook c1 and you fight on the open file. You don't even think about it. So rook e1. Now, Ravi Haria plays queen d8, which is one of the best moves. But you'll notice the mysterious move by Magnus strikes a little bit of fear and uncertainty. 20 minutes spent on a queen move. It's a fascinating thing about chess. This is why chess is going to be very difficult to get on television screens, okay? Because you watch any sport, you go, hit the ball, shoot the puck, yeah! Like, nobody at a sports bar is going to sit in this position for 20 minutes and go,
Wow, that's an absolutely fascinating rook move. Let me check my online database. I don't think it's ever happened. Black's got tremendous pressure here on the centre, but White is a move away from alleviating it. And White definitely wants to create this multifaceted bishop reroute, but doing that would negate the safety of the queen.
Like, nobody's sitting at a sports bar for 20 minutes drinking an Allagash white beer and doing this. Okay? Queen d8. Magnus goes for his plan. Bishop to d1. That was the idea. He's going to put the bishop over here or over here. Because if he gets one of the knights, he's going to be in good shape. Now, Ravi plays f6. So this is a big moment. f6 is a massive move. Number one, pawn trade is brewing in the center of the board. Number two, that's weak. He created a weakness for himself by trying to relieve White's dominance of the center of the board. Number three, that rook is going to open up. Unless we get this, G takes f6. If G takes f6 was played here, Black should be revoked of a Grandmaster title. And it should be given to me. That would make my life a lot easier. So these are all the ideas of this move f6, okay? So Magnus plays bishop a4. And the idea is pretty straightforward. This knight is playing a major role in pressuring the center, so I want to take it. And again, normally for beginners, intermediates, I say, like, if you don't see a clear enough reason to trade a bishop for a knight, you don't see an advantage, don't give up a bishop for a knight. You know, this bishop, you want it for the attack. But here's the problem. If you just play something like bishop c2, you're not going to achieve an attack. Like, you're not. It's not there. This looks great. All of this, I can't draw arrows, but you know, you understand it. But the other idea of bishop to a4 is to force a move out of Black. That's how Magnus plays chess. And he's better than anyone in the world at it. He's better than everybody in the world at it. He wants Black to play b5. He wants Black to play a move that slaps his bishop backwards. And he evaluates that the move b5, which is a very natural move, building upon that move a6 and kicking out, it was a super, super natural move for Black. He evaluates that it's what he wants. b5. There it is. Now bishop c2. This pawn actually creates a little bit of instability back here, and it's very much a target in the future, right? So it's a pawn that can be targeted in the future. The c5 square is now potentially permanently inhabitable because, or habitable? Habitable, not inhabitable, habitable. I don't know, I just make chess content. So he induces a move, right? And look at how many pawns his opponent has moved forward. Magnus hasn't touched these pawns. Magnus does not like to move pawns. It's kind of a general statement, but he loves to make his opponent bring the pawns to him. And he does. Ravi Haria takes on e5, and now Magnus plays d takes e5. And this is a very tense moment in this game. So Magnus has eyes on that, right? He has eyes potentially to sacrifice. He's got eyes to pressure the d file, potentially g4 to open up some attacking possibilities. Let's say Black just plays a rook to c8, a very natural, easy, straightforward move. I don't actually fully know what is wrong with this move for Black. And clearly, as you can see from the computer also doesn't really know. Knight takes d5 straight away doesn't quite cut it. It looks really good if you get like e6 and stuff, but none of this works because of bishop takes e6. And then knight d4, and it's a lot of things are attacked at the same time, knight d4, and actually Black is just winning. So that's not the idea. The idea could be to probably reroute the knight, something like e2, and then to f4, or to g3, or to the center in the future, trying to play bishop takes and then put a knight on d4, something like this. That could be another idea. But in general, something like this is probably not worth like some sort of massive reaction. But this is the general idea. Magnus wants to go here, play something like g4. So sensing tactics on this diagonal, sensing tactics on that diagonal, Ravi Haria plays king h8. And this is the biggest advantage that Magnus has had the entire game. Point 3. Something the computer didn't like about king h8 It thought it was a bit of an overreaction, an overcorrection of the position. It didn't like that black did not bring a piece like rook c8 or queen c7 or queen a5 even, but queen a5 is aggressive but maybe slightly flawed, but it stops knight e2 because you're threatening to trade queens. King h8, what's so bad about that move? Well, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to turn off the eval bar. And we're just going to watch, okay? We're just going to watch Magnus go to work. Knight e2. That was always the idea, right? The idea was to transfer the knight either over here or get rid of one of black's knights. If this, of course, you win d5 and you get an e-pawn passing. But if rook f5, you put a knight on d4 and you get into one of the most dreaded endgames in chess, the French bishop endgame. Let's say, of course, this would not happen, but let's just say you got an endgame that looked like this. This is a worse nightmare against Magnus Carlsen. It is 5 out of 6 light-squared pawns with a light-squared bishop. The bishop has absolutely zero scope. And the knight patrols the invasion. So the rook c2 is not even possible. This is a French defense endgame, which Magnus would beat even the best players in the world in. This is not what you want to happen. And remember Magnus's move bishop g5 in the opening when he played this? This is why black had to be very careful playing the move bishop e7. Bishop e7 was a very subtle strategic mistake. And you are paying the price for it deep into this game. Deep into this game with this decision making, okay? So after knight e2, Ravi Haria trades off the knight. He doesn't want Magnus to get rid of his knight and have a dominant knight, so he plays knight h4. But my friends, remember how on move 13, when Magnus played rook ae1, remember how I told you that white would love to play f4? I told you that. And then this would all make sense, putting the rooks here, because they would be supporting the E and F files, and actually Magnus would be a genius. Well, lo and behold, here comes f4. And it's just actually incredible how easily Magnus's moves flow into one another. And now moving the rook to e1 is genius in other ways, because this rook on f1 did not ever go that way, so it can go up and over. Magnus is 2 moves away from winning the game. Right now, he's only slightly better. If you don't believe me, it's only 0.3. So now a very big moment. Black has to decide what he's doing. Is he bringing his queen out? Is he going to bring his rook to the party? He brings his rook to the party, but now he's down 30 minutes on the clock. And the heart is racing. The heart is like, I'm in a very tense moment against Magnus. Now, Magnus, sensing all of this, understanding that he could go for it right now, cool, calm, and collected, slides the bishop back 1 square. Look how much time he spent on that move. About a minute, because you get 30-second bonus every time. He spent bishop back 1 square. You think for 6 minutes with black, 7, you get the 30 seconds. He goes here, instantly. Ball is back in your court. You got 14 minutes to figure this out. White wants to go rook f3, rook h3. You got to get your queen out of here, or you have to block the bishop's diagonal, but you don't want to push another pawn because you're playing Magnus. You don't want to push another pawn, right? So the queen goes out. Queen goes out. Now, this is still constantly on the nervous system of black. Magnus slides forward 1 square. Just 1 square. And do you know what the idea is? Infiltrate. In the future, now, I can infiltrate. And the only reason your pawns are weak is because some 5 moves ago, I played bishop to a4, forcing you to go b5, and I went back. And as the game progressed, and we traded our pieces, now I'm infiltrating, and I'm converting my advantage over here. So, Ravi comes back. He's down to 6 minutes. Every move that he has played, his time has nearly gone down by half, except right here. But he's down to 6 minutes, and Magnus still has 40. Now, can Magnus play queen b6? Absolutely. Absolutely, he can play queen b6. But then maybe black plays a5, and there's various tactics here with knight e5. So, instead of doing any of that, Magnus continues improving his position and building the tension. Rook c1. Improving his position. That rook served its purpose on the e-file. Now it goes back to c1, and it pressures over here. This rook threatening this, and threatening the advancement of the f-pawn at any moment. Now Ravi brings the queen back. And immediately, Magnus shows him that a couple of moves ago, it was okay to bring the queen back to e7. But not right now. What is the difference between this position and this position? It's very subtle. What is the difference between this position and this position? The difference is that Magnus slid forward one square. And the idea was to go there. So now black is worried about the king side and the queen side. But there was another difference. On the third rank, when the black queen retreats, this is Magnus's biggest advantage of the game. Queen h3. That was the difference. Magnus slid his queen forward one square, threatening an infiltration, giving black something to think about on that weakened queen side. But the other idea was that at some point, black is going to panic. He's going to move his queen to join everybody else, and he's going to surrender the h-file. And once you surrender the h-file, it's going to go from bad to worse, because now I am dominating on that side of the board. And Magnus plays g4. Magnus did not push any pawns the entire game, except in the opening. Look at these pawns, and now watch as the game progressed. Yes, he had to recapture, but he only touched his center pawns. The entirety of the game was played by maneuvering, only making necessary pawn moves until now. f4, and a couple of moves later, g4. Black is in deep trouble. Magnus now plays a3, which prevents the knight and the queen from going to b4. Ravi plays king g8, stepping off the g-file, but it doesn't matter. Magnus has arrived. The h-pawn is unguardable. If you take, it's checkmate in 2 with king f7 and bishop g6 mate. Magnus is knocking on the door. Ravi with 158 plays one of the best moves, actually, sacrifices his knight in the center of the board. But Magnus, before he takes it, trades the rook because he's going to be up material and picks up the knight. And while black does get a pawn with check, that's guardable. Magnus is now up a knight for 2 pawns, but it's really going to be only 1 because he's definitely going to win this one. Ravi knows he can't trade queens, so he trades rooks and brings the queen. But now, bishop g6. Sealing off the king's escape. This is mate in just a few moments. And in this position, Ravi Haria resigned. Now I'm going to run a game analysis because that was absolutely effortless. That was such a nice and straightforward game of chess. That was everything that you like to see. And Magnus played that game at 97% accuracy. The computer gives him 2 inaccuracies, which came when he played his... Magnus's estimated elo that game was 3,500. And to Ravi's credit, Ravi played apparently like a 3,100. So, yes. But you look back at a game like this, and you literally go, I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know how I lost this game so easily. I don't know what I did wrong. And I got news for you. I think it actually starts right here. The most innocuous-looking bishop move, just saying, hey, let's trade bishops. Let me get castled. My life is good. That is the subtle difference between Magnus Carlsen and a 2,500 GM. It's actually unbelievable. Like, it's little rook AE1 with the absurdly deep idea of a bishop reroute, also with a move that induces a weakening move, and then just the subtle one movers, such as bishop B1 and queen E3. So many of us would be tempted to play some aggressive move. Now, some of you may also be keenly aware of the fact that here black can play knight takes e5. And then if takes, you would lose this. So queen e3 does defend against that, which is why it's, but white could have also went here and here. So this is clearly the best move because it's threatening an infiltration, in my opinion. It's just an awesome game of chess. Just awesome from start to finish. And I really like seeing Magnus playing against normal grandmasters. that's all, my friends. Mandatory end of the video. If you haven't pre-ordered the book yet, check it out. It's behind me. It's available in Spanish and German, and available in the UK with 25% off until October 24th. And you know where to find me if you want my courses. That's all I got for you today. Get out of here.